All right, next question. This is a good one. It's a little controversial, but I'm going to answer it. Should kids get a black belt? Hey y'all, I'm Alex. Today I'm going to be answering a lot of your questions that you guys left me for this Q&A video. I'm super excited to answer these questions because you guys left me a lot of really good ones. A lot of them have to do with training, how to improve your kicks, all different kinds of stuff like that. So I think this will actually be a really informative Q&A. So I'm really excited to get into this. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we're going to jump right into the questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. You guys left me a lot of really good ones, so we're just going to get to as much as I can today. First question, were you nervous about your first sparring competition? Yes, I was extremely nervous, definitely super nervous, even nervous to this day. Even when I compete, I still get extremely nervous, anxious, excited, all those feelings going into it, but at the end of the day, that really just means that you care. Nerves are completely normal for when you go and compete. All right, next, how do you stay motivated? So this is a good question, staying motivated. So I think motivation, you kind of get different sources of motivation. Maybe you're watching some other people train, you see like a video, it kind of just sparks a little bit of motivation every now and then. But I think at the end of it, it really depends on your discipline. You have to stay disciplined. So I would say for me, that's kind of what my trait is. I can stay really disciplined. I get into my routine and I just stay in that consistent routine even when I'm not really feeling up to doing it. There's definitely plenty of times where I'm not motivated to train, but it kind of falls back on my discipline to just kind of just go do it anyway. So I think staying motivated, I don't always have motivation, but like I said, falls back on that discipline. You got to stay disciplined, stay consistent, and everything will kind of fall into place and tie together. All right, next question. How long have you been teaching doing Taekwondo for? So I have been training in Taekwondo since 2004, and then I've been teaching as a full-time instructor for 3 years now. So teaching full-time as an instructor for 3 years, and then I started Taekwondo in 2004, so martial arts has definitely been a huge part of my life, and still is today, obviously. Next question. All right, so there's 3 questions in this one. Let's see. All right, so first one, how do you keep things fresh and exciting? I would say just changing up the drills a little every now and then. I don't always do the same exact routine. I would say I change it up, kind of mix things up. Like for a while, I would do like 1,000 kicks and have like a set 1,000 kicks that I would do, and then now I kind of switched that routine on that day to just doing like timed freestyle rounds. So it's kind of changing things up. Sometimes work on technical kicking, sometimes work on cardio kicking, see how many kicks you can do. Sometimes work on like power, explosive kicking, just different ways to change things up. You can always break down footwork stuff. So just kind of rotating through different drills, I would say. I'm not always doing new things because I think there's a lot of set things that work and like you need to keep training it. So I would say for that, just rotate through different routines, have a few different routines that actually work and you know will help you and help kind of give you some results, and just kind of rotate through those routines. That way it doesn't seem like you're doing the same exact thing every single time. So I would say that. Next, what's your greatest source of motivation? Like I said in the previous question, I would say yeah, so this is a tough one. So motivation, like I said before, it's kind of more discipline. I mean, I get motivated every now and then, but there's definitely days where I definitely don't feel motivated to do anything, and that's when it falls back on discipline. I'm very disciplined. I'm a very consistent person. Once I get into a routine, for me, it's easy for me to stick to that routine even when I don't feel motivated to do it. So that's kind of what works for me, just getting into that consistent routine, staying in that routine, and then that's how I'm able to kind of stay on track. Source of motivations, like I said, I'll watch some like fights or like training stuff. That'll kind of give me a little bit of a spark of motivation to maybe give me a little extra push, but for the most part, it's really just staying disciplined. Staying disciplined and having a goal. Having goals definitely helps. Third, where do you come up with your innovative training? I watch a ton of different training videos from I watch like these kids in Thailand train, like all different kinds of just training videos from people all around the world, and every now and then I'll see like a drill I really like or I think that might really help me, and I'll kind of either add that drill into my training or I'll modify it to work for me. So just kind of just watching just a lot of different trainings from different people, taking small things from what I see and just kind of just making it fit for me. So I would say just just watch a ton of different people training and just kind of let it spark your own ideas. All right, next question. Let's see. Biggest weakness is my side kick. I've never been good at it. Decent side kick at belt level, but can't get any height to it. Okay, so this is a good question. So obviously being able to kick high with a side kick or any kick in general, you obviously need to have some flexibility. So working on your stretching is definitely going to help. But for me, the number one tip is practicing wall kicks. So that means holding your hand on a wall or on a chair and just practicing just that side kick, okay? So this is really good because it's gonna help give you the strength in your hips and your legs to be able to kick higher and develop that strength to hold your leg up higher. And then also it's really good because it's going to help you work on just the technique of the kick and being able to get that height as well. Because if you're just practicing a regular, just standing side kick doing it, you have to worry about your balance, all that body posture, all that good stuff, which you need to work on anyway. But when you're just trying to work on just developing and getting that height, something really just simple, like I said, just the wall kicks. That way you can take out the balance, take out all of that, and just purely focus on the kick. So practicing that chamber, locking out that kick, and then I would say just start off where you can kind of get a nice lockout like towards the body, and then slowly start kicking higher and higher as you get more comfortable. So number one thing to practice is just wall kicks. That way you can just focus on the technique of the kick, and then also just flexibility in general. What are the best drills for kicking and sparring? So this is a good question. So I would say if you are by yourself and you're doing some training and need some drills, just doing simple bag drills are great. You can help work on your cardio, which is really good. It's going to help benefit you for sparring and just kicking in general. Just doing like repetitive kicks, going like at a pace cardio, doing high repetition kicks, but also going like working on explosivity, doing like lower rep kicks, but doing like as fast as you can, and then also just taking your time doing power kicks. That's also really great, along with technical kicking. So working on like, if you're working on stuff for sparring, working on like your cut kick, just different stuff like that, all really good for working on by yourself with just a bag. Now, if you have someone to help you do drills, this is even better, especially for sparring, because you can work on your reaction time. So if you have someone, I would say have them hold targets or a shield. They kind of step in, either hold like for a roundhouse kick, work on like your patajagi motions, back kick motions, like counter back kicks, stuff like that. That's really good because you can work on the timing, because sometimes they might come in fast, they might come in slow. So that's really good for you to help you work on that. And then probably my number one drill, if you have a partner, is doing basically freestyle paddle work. So basically you're just moving around, kind of like if you're like in the ring, and they're just feeding you random targets, whether it's like roundhouse kick, cut kick, punches, whatever it is, and you just have to react off what they give you and you have to hit it, along with moving around. So that's probably the number one drill to kind of help with just kicking and sparring in general if you have a partner. If not, just do it on the bag. You can still do a lot of really good stuff on the bag by yourself. Okay, so there's a couple, all right, there's a couple in this one. Who was supporting you? If you're talking about like moral support, my husband supports me. He's very supportive in my training. And then number two, who is your hero or your example in taekwondo? So this is a really good question because I looked at this and I was really thinking about it. And I've gotten this question a lot, like who do you look up to? Who's your hero? Like who do you look up to like as your example in taekwondo? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't really look up to anyone in particular. Like even when I was younger training, even now when I'm training, I don't really have like a hero in taekwondo. I don't really look up to anyone. The more I actually thought about it. For me, I guess you could say I kind of like watch a lot of different like high level athletes. Like I follow them, I watch them train and do different types of stuff, and it kind of gives me a little bit of motivation, but there's no particular person that I actually look up to or would say is like my hero for martial arts or taekwondo training in general. I would say a lot of it just comes from just my drive, just my personal drive to just kind of keep training. So that's kind of just the best thing I can say for that one. Like I don't really have a hero. I look up to other people like for like training motivation, I guess you could say, but there's not like one person who's like, oh, I want to be exactly like that person. Nothing like that. So I would say just, and if you guys are kind of in the same boat, like it's good to look up to people. It's not like a bad thing. I'm not saying like you shouldn't look up to anyone, but it's really good to look up to just different people, find different things to kind of give you sources of motivation to kind of keep fueling that drive is definitely a good thing. Next up, what are some good endurance workouts to do when you don't want to run? I am testing for my first dawn on November 21st. First off, good luck on your test coming up. Second, good endurance workouts. If you don't want to run, I would say jump roping is really good, really simple, doesn't take up any space. Or if you have a bag or access to a bag, just doing a lot of kicking, cardio kicking. That's really the two things I would recommend because I don't like running myself. I really hate running. It gets kind of boring after a while, but jump roping, cardio kicking, those are the two things I recommend. All right, next question. This is a good one. It's a little controversial, but I'm going to answer it. Should kids get a black belt? And this is my opinion on that as being a martial arts instructor for the last few years. I think kids can get black belts if they can pass the requirements mentally and physically for the test. Because I've seen some kids, like I've said, over the last few years of me teaching, I've seen some kids who are tougher mentally and physically than some teenagers and adults. I've seen like teenagers and adults like crumble under like pressure, you know, in that testing environment. They just kind of get really nervous and they just crumble and fall apart. And I've seen younger kids like just like eat it, just like eat that and just like stay calm or just like still crush it or like not cry and crumble or get really like upset like some of these teenagers and adults I've seen. So I would say there are some kids out there that can get a black belt and deserve to have it, because I think black belt isn't just like being physically strong and powerful. I would say having a black belt is mentally and physically, kind of the combination of both. So I think there are some special kids out there that can acquire both. So I would say yes, in my opinion. I've seen some kids do some incredible things. So yes, I think there are some kids that can mentally and physically have a black belt. Moving on. All right, next question. How do you get to do self-training? How overcome the difficulty of training? Okay, self-training, so I'm guessing like training by myself and like difficulties like that. So yeah, training by myself, that's definitely nothing new for me. I did that for a while. Most of you know I kind of trained myself for several years. And then even now, I train 5 days a week. Even now, like 2 to 3 of my sessions are by myself. And I would say the biggest thing for me is having goals. So like my goal is to, you know, make it really high in competitions. I want to compete at a high level before I get too old to be out there sparring. So that's having that goal and that drive of something that I want to achieve makes me want to work like really hard right now, while obviously like being careful and staying injury free. But like that's kind of what keeps me like motivated and kind of get over some of those difficulties that it is to kind of train by yourself, because it does get pretty lonely, especially if it's just you in the bag, you're by yourself. It's definitely hard to like get a good workout in some days, but just having goals is definitely going to help kind of fuel your drive to train, whether you're with people or you're completely by yourself. So definitely have a goal you want to achieve and just work really hard to get to that level. All right, this one is, all right, 3-part question. 1, what's your favorite poomsae? So you guys know I hate forms, I hate poomsae. I absolutely hate poomsaes. But if I did have to choose one, I think I would say tebek. That would probably be my favorite one if I had to choose one. That one's kind of fun to me. It's a little bit different. Number 2, who was the hardest or most talented athlete you've ever sparred? That's a pretty good question, because I would say I don't have a ton of experience sparring a lot of different people. One person I can think of off the top of my head, I recently sparred with him in a training session a couple weeks ago. His name's Nathan Rogers, so I would say he's probably one of the most talented, diverse athletes I've probably sparred, especially just that I can think of off the top of my head right now. He's pretty cool. He's pretty good at sparring, so I recently got to spar with him the last couple weeks, so I would say him if I had to say someone right now. And then 3rd, what do you do to mentally prepare for a match? So that's a really good question. So I would say like going into like a tournament match, music definitely helps a lot, listen to a lot of music, but another thing is just having a good coach, just going over a game plan with you definitely helps mentally. So I would say just kind of a mix of you just kind of just relaxing a little bit on your own, spacing out with some music, having a good like stretching warm-up routine, and then having a good coach who kind of helps kind of keep you focused and kind of going over the game plan definitely helps a lot. What has been the hardest thing for you while professionally competing? Hardest thing while competing, injuries. So I would say the competing part's not hard. It's just having to keep up consistent training, and then having injuries along the way kind of set everything back again, and like you have to like restart, get back into shape. I think that's been the hardest thing, is having injuries. All right, there's a couple questions in this one. Who inspired you to start Taekwondo? My parents forced me into it. So no one actually inspired me to start Taekwondo. My parents forced me into it. I did not want to do it. What's your favorite kick? Favorite kick to throw is probably a spinning hook kick. I love throwing it, especially it's just very satisfying to hit a target with a good spinning hook kick. And then favorite place you've traveled while competing? Well, if it wasn't for everything getting canceled this year, I probably would have said Vegas for AAU Nationals, but that didn't happen this year, unfortunately. So I would have to say Fort Lauderdale for Nationals last year was a lot of fun. Just being by the beach and competing there was definitely a lot of fun 4th of July week. So that was a fun trip. I enjoyed that. All right, this is a good one. As an instructor, how do you generally structure classes? Like warm-up, stretching, sparring, drills, curriculum. Do you have a focus, or is it split across different areas? How does student mix effective training plan? Okay, so this is a good question. So we do have, obviously, like during class, our students have like forms and curriculum they have to focus on. So I usually start with warm-up for like 5 to 10 minutes, warm-up and stretching. The bulk of the class is going to be focused on the curriculum they need for their upcoming test. And I would say the last 10 to 15 minutes of class is going to be different activities, something to basically get them sweating. So whether it's like a fun activity, they're doing exercises like burpees, we're kicking on the bags, doing different drills like that. They're going to be moving, sweating, doing kicks, all different kinds of stuff. Obviously, when we get back to sparring, we'll be doing some sparring during some months. But for now, it's just a lot of kicking-based drills, exercises, just trying to get them moving, staying active, working out, working on their kicks. All right, next question. All right, I've been trying to get going on TKD for over a year now. First time I started, moved, COVID hit. Okay, trying to finally settle down. Okay, this is a good question. What would you look for in a school? Okay, because this person's you're a little bit newer into it. You want to kind of find a good school. So I would say research definitely what style you want to do. Like for Taekwondo, research what style you want to get into. There's a few different styles. Research different schools in your area. Just kind of look at reviews, kind of look at what they do. And then really it's going to come down to you need to go try some classes. So try some classes at a couple of different schools and then go from there. Does the instructor seem, like it's a good fit for you? Because not everyone's going to be a good fit for every instructor. Everyone teaches differently. Every environment's going to be differently. So I would say the biggest thing is going to be you just need to go try out the school. And if you like the instructor and you feel like it's a good environment, then I would say go for it. I would say it really just comes down for that. That's the biggest thing I would say for when looking for in a school. Go try a class and just see what it's about. Let's see, 12-year-old in Tangsudo. All right. Both of our art forms are Korean-based. There are a lot of differences, correct. As a young martial artist, how can I become more well-rounded in my art form and be a better overall practitioner and a missionary of martial arts? That's a really good question. I would say no matter what martial arts you practice, you want to just be very well-rounded. Obviously, becoming really well-rounded is really good. So even like training stuff you're not really into. So for me, like I'm not crazy about forms, but when it comes down to it, I can do my forms. Like I can make them look somewhat sharp, some power, technique. So I would say just training all areas first, obviously, of your curriculum, what your style has, and then from there, I would say find something that, like your niche, like what part of it that you really like enjoy, and then expand on that a little bit more. So for me, obviously I have to learn forms, weapons, kicking, obviously like kicking and sparring and like self-defense type stuff. So I make sure that I'm well-rounded in all of that, but then my thing is I really like kicking and sparring. So that's like my thing I'm gonna like go to and like really focus on. So I would say that like obviously become really well-rounded in everything, so practice all of your stuff, And then from there, find one of those things and become really good at it. Like kind of almost, not like specialize, but kind of like specialize in it. For me, I'm into sparring. So I would recommend doing that. And then as you kind of grow, as you get older, you kind of advance in rank, then maybe you can start adding in some other stuff. Once you get really good at sparring, you feel good with that, then maybe, you know, transfer it over into something else. And then you're just kind of keep growing everything as you kind of keep progressing in your training. Since TKD is a highly combative sport, how do you deal with bruises, and what do you tell people when they see your bruises? How do I deal with the bruises? I just deal with them. Yeah, I mean, it comes with it. So I don't really think about them that much. I mean, it's just part of it. No one ever really says anything about my bruises, so I don't really have to explain it. But yeah, it's part of it. I know it's part of it. I'm going to get bruised. I'm going to be sore. I'm going to get injuries and stuff here and there. It's part of it. Just deal with it. All right, next up, this is another 3 questions in this one. 1, do you have any examples of people who have short legs and have succeeded in their taekwondo career, or all well-succeeding people just long-legged and skinny in taekwondo? I would say off the top of my head, one that I could think of would be Jade Jones. I feel like she's not quite like super tall. I mean, she's still a little bit, she's like taller than me, but I don't think she's like extremely super tall, and she's obviously very successful in her career. She's accomplished a lot. So I would say Jade Jones is like the one person I could think of that isn't like just super tall and skinny. She's really good because she's really aggressive. So I think that's what kind of helps her kind of overcome that. Next, how did you learn the Korean Taekwondo vocabulary? What material did you use to learn them? When I learned it, I just learned it growing up in my Taekwondo classes. They just used the Korean terms a lot, and over time, when you get used to hearing things, you just kind of learn it. So you just kind of put 2 and 2 together, and that's just how I learned it. Last, do you have any kind of book to recommend that might relate to Taekwondo? I do not, because I'm not a book reader. I have a hard time focusing. I can't sit down and like read very well, so I'm not big into reading books. I have a hard time reading. So, well, not have a hard time reading. That sounded really bad. I don't have a hard time reading. I have a hard time focusing on like reading a book, so I can't like make it through a book. I have a hard time doing that. So, no, I do not, but if you want to suggest any in the comments down below, you can suggest some books for some people to read in the comments down below if you have any, because I do not. All right, what's your favorite kick? Spinning hook kick. Definitely my favorite kick. Have you ever been interested in acting or being a stunt performer? Not really, honestly. For me, like we've done like some fight scenes you guys have seen on here, and that's been fun, but like I don't do them that much because they're a lot. They take a lot of time and energy. And for me, my interest right now is just in competing and sparring. So that's really what I want to train for right now. So I would say not really. I don't really have a big interest in acting. Definitely not stunts. I don't want to get injured. That doesn't sound fun. So not really. Next question. What are some of your diet tips? What do you usually have during the day? Good question, because I'm actually currently working on kind of cleaning up my diet and kind of basically working on slowly cutting weight as we hopefully will get back to competing next year. But the biggest thing for me personally, not eating meals at night, not eating anything too late at night. If anything, I'll just try to have like a protein shake and just drink a lot of water. So that's what I'll do kind of at night. That typically helps me a lot, especially when I'm like trying to cut weight. Another thing is just having a good balance, not eating like too much carbs, obviously not eating anything like fried or sugary, stuff like that. Just pay attention to what you're putting in your body. Make sure just think of what I've been doing is thinking of like what I'm about to eat. Is it going to fuel me for my training session later? Because like, especially for me, if I eat too bad or I eat too much, I definitely feel it when I train. I don't feel very good when I train. So just think of that. That's probably like the biggest tips. Just think about what you're putting in your body and just think of, is this going to give me energy and fuel me for training later? That's how I'd go about it. All right, next question. Of all the sparring matches you've competed in, which was your favorite and why? It's a really good question. Of all the matches, okay, I'll answer it this way. I'll say what my favorite tournament. I would say my favorite tournament, so it's kind of sort of close to what you're asking. My favorite tournament so far has been AAU Nationals last year in 2019. So I would say that was really fun because I felt really good out there. I didn't feel like super overwhelmed and nervous. Like I felt, obviously I was still nervous, but I didn't like feel it like really, really bad. But I also felt really good. It was like a nice balance. Like mentally, I felt like a nice balance of nervousness and like pumped up, ready to go. So I would say like that tournament, I just felt really good. I placed second, so obviously had some decent fights. First fight was pretty good. Obviously my finals fight I lost, and it was definitely a tough match, but I fought someone who was like bigger, stronger, taller, and she was very experienced, really good. So for me, it was really a good learning experience as well. So I would say AAU Nationals was it was fun, and it was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We were by the beach, so I'd say overall, like that's kind of like my most like favorite memory of a tournament so far. Hopefully more to come next year. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I tried to get to as many questions as I could. I know I couldn't get to all of them. There were a ton of really great questions, so I wanted to try to answer a lot of them that were either kind of similar or asked a couple times throughout the comments, or some that maybe would give some advice to other people as well. So I tried to kind of just find some that would kind of help just a lot of you out there as well. So I do hope you all did enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching the video. Let me know what else you want to see in the comments down below. And congratulations to the 3 people that I picked for attending my next Zoom class. I will see you guys on the 22nd. And if you guys are interested in trying to join one of my future Zoom classes or get a one-on-one lesson with me, you can visit alexwongtkd.com for more details. You guys are awesome. Thanks for all the questions. I'll see you guys later.